Jimmie Johnson officially retires from full-time racing, and several of NASCAR's most accomplished and most established veteran drivers are going scorched earth on Twitter. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Lots to talk about today. If you missed it, late last night I posted my initial reaction to yesterday's Texas race. Part of today's video is kind of a follow-up to yesterday's, but we also have some new things to discuss and some other things to react to that we may have missed yesterday. First, let's begin with some breaking news from Jimmie Johnson himself. Fresh off competing in a full-time IndyCar season, Jimmie Johnson confirmed today that he is retiring from full-time racing. The 47-year-old seven-time NASCAR Cup Series champion didn't offer many specifics, but suggested his future schedule would likely consist of no more than 10 bucket list events. What could some of those events be? He's expressed interest in racing at Le Mans next year, perhaps even in the NASCAR Garage 56 entry. He's also expressed interest in doing the Memorial Day double, Indy 500 and then the Coke 600 in the same day. Could do some more IndyCar events, more IMSA events, maybe the Rolex 24 at Daytona once again. Jimmie Johnson's the kind of guy who can really pick and choose, be very selective as far as what kind of events he participates in. He's a world-class driver, the most accomplished NASCAR star of my generation at least. Congrats to Jimmie Johnson on an amazing career. I know the last 2 years of IndyCar racing has probably been more of a struggle than he and many of his fans were hoping for. But the fact that a dude in his mid-40s just decided to go race a completely different discipline, and on some of the ovals this year actually had good top 5, top 6 runs. He deserves to be commended for at least putting himself out there, taking that chance, taking that risk. You gotta admire Johnson for not really caring what anybody else says or thinks and just doing what he wants to do, challenging himself even beyond his successful NASCAR career. So congrats to Jimmie Johnson. Excited to see what select races he's got on his schedule coming up. Next, last night's race at Texas Motor Speedway supplied us with like 5 races worth of content. A lot happened last night. So much happened that we missed some stuff, the broadcast missed some stuff, most notably this contact that's been shared around social media the past 12 hours or so between Ty Gibbs and Ty Dillon on pit road. You see clearly Ty Gibbs swerves suddenly and door slams Dillon. Clearly Ty Gibbs was upset about something, chose to express his frustration there on pit road. That isn't good. You look at the replay one more time, there are crew members and officials standing right next to where that contact happens. If you're Ty Gibbs, you have to have better awareness than that. Pit road, where there are people standing around who aren't shielded by giant metal race cars, is not the place to express frustration like that. Ty Gibbs has made a clear and conscious effort the past few months to mellow out a bit, especially during his TV appearances, during interviews. He hasn't come across quite as hot-headed on TV in recent months, but on the racetrack, this just proves he is still prone to these sudden meltdowns. Just heat of the moment, lapses in judgment that have real-world ramifications. Like, that's not good, that's not acceptable. This is who Ty Gibbs is. He's very talented, but he's young, raw, and extraordinarily emotional. That's not something you can fix overnight or even in a year. It's going to take time. He's going to get older. He will naturally mature. As he gains more experience, I do believe these types of incidents will become less and less frequent, but that still is no excuse for what we saw last night. Now, NASCAR's Elton Sawyer went on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio this morning and suggested there could be a penalty coming towards Ty Gibbs for that contact. That's one of the incidents NASCAR is reviewing this week and may announce potential penalties at a later date. I'm not sure what penalty would be fair. I think at the very least he just needs a talking to. He needs to be kind of put on notice that you cannot do these things. NASCAR, the teams will be looking at that a lot closer going forward. If they penalize him, I'm sure it'll be a fine of some sort for sure. Okay. We don't want to see incidents like that. Hopefully someone is able to convey that to Ty Gibbs very clearly. Now, that wasn't the only on-track incident Sunday night that NASCAR race control, NASCAR officials completely missed. In the latter portions of last night's race, competing for a spot inside the top 5, Denny Hamlin on the inside of William Byron got a little tight and ended up running Byron a little wide. William Byron got into the outside wall. Byron said after the race that contact with the wall actually bent the toe link slightly. Byron ended up finishing 7th. During the next caution period, William Byron sped up and spun Denny Hamlin out through the tri-oval grass. William Byron was allowed to keep his position on the racetrack. Meanwhile, NASCAR deemed that Denny Hamlin had failed to maintain his position under caution and had him restart outside the top 20. Hamlin, his crew chief Chris Gabehart, were fuming, were red hot, calling for NASCAR to issue some sort of penalty, even just like a tail end of the longest line penalty for William Byron, but NASCAR wasn't having it. NASCAR issued no penalties to William Byron, and NASCAR's VP of Competition, Scott Miller, was asked about this by reporters after the race.
When we were in the tower, we were paying more attention to the actual cause of the caution up there and dispatching our equipment. The William Byron, Denny Hamlin thing, we had no eyes on. We saw Denny go through the grass, and by the time we got to a replay that showed the incident well enough to do anything to it, we'd gone back to green, but I'm not sure that that issue is completely resolved as of yet. So we'll be looking at that when we get back to work.
So Byron sounds like could face a penalty later this week. I can cut NASCAR some slack for missing the contact between Gibbs and Ty Dillon on pit road for 30th place in the moment and not calling it right there. But this Byron Hamlin stuff happened inside the top 5, late in the race, between two playoff drivers. How does someone not see that? How do you not have a camera on that? Every single car now has an onboard camera. This kind of stuff is unacceptable. Here's what probably happened. So there was a caution for a completely different incident unrelated to Byron and Hamlin. That's what NASCAR was primarily focusing on. Okay, makes sense. Byron spins Denny Hamlin out, and to be fair to NASCAR, USA Network did not have a good angle of that contact. It took a while for an actual onboard replay from Byron's car to show us what really happened. NASCAR, using their eyes and using whatever cameras NBC had, saw that Hamlin was in the grass and said, well, he didn't maintain his position, so per the rule book, he has to restart in the back. And they stopped there. I guess NASCAR Race Control didn't have access to that William Byron onboard camera until later. That's a problem. The race control or officiating process needs a complete overhaul. The views, the cameras, the spotters they have access to, that needs to be changed or rethought. And honestly, I think some of the people involved at race control, I think, need to be very critically observed. Because we shouldn't be talking about this on Tuesday or Wednesday. This should have been an easy black and white call right there in the moment. If you had an issue with Byron spinning a guy out under caution, send him to the tail end. That should have been an easy call right then and there. How we didn't have a camera on it is mind-boggling. How NASCAR Race Control didn't have access to that 24 onboard, shocking. Race Control needs a complete overhaul. At this point, they're missing calls that I didn't even know were possible to miss. Last week, people were upset about them throwing a caution for Bell, but not throwing a caution for Keselowski, and their excuse afterwards made absolutely no sense. This week, they missed a driver in the top 5 getting spun out by a rival playoff contender on the front stretch in front of the entire crowd. No more excuses. Make changes. I'm trying not to get too heated about this because several NASCAR Cup Series stars have already taken care of that for me. Twitter has been an interesting place, really the last couple of weeks, courtesy mainly of Kevin Harvick, but over the last 16 hours or so, several star drivers, including Harvick, have sounded off in a major way. First, there's Kyle Busch, who was out of the race at the time. He tweeted, "No penalty for this?" Talking about the Byron spinning Hamlin. "Depends on who you are, I see." Kyle Busch not happy with the no call. Then Kevin Harvick tweeted a response to Scott Miller saying, "Oh, we didn't see it." Wait, what? How in the world is this possible? Absolutely flabbergasted. And then Denny Hamlin tweeted his response to the same quote. "They missed it. What an effing joke. It played on the screen 5 times during caution. We were on the radio yelling at them what happened. I challenged my spot. What are they doing up there then?" And Hamlin wasn't done there. We'll get to a separate quote here in just a moment. But clearly, some of NASCAR's most veteran star drivers, they're becoming way more outspoken on social media lately. I think NASCAR's laxed up on the, fines detrimental to stock car racing. They haven't been hushing their drivers quite as much lately. At least that's what this is all telling me. Harvick's still tweeting about his, crappy parts t-shirt. That tells me NASCAR has not slapped him on the wrist yet. So, interesting. I respect NASCAR for allowing the drivers to share their opinions, I suppose. But none of this is good for NASCAR. It's not good that on a near weekly basis, veterans of the sport, stars of the sport are bashing the sanctioning body, the cars, the tires, you name it, every single week. I'm not blaming the drivers for this though. NASCAR, the tracks, some of its partners, they share most of the blame for things being where they are now. Drivers are always going to complain, no doubt about it, but NASCAR has made it easier for them in recent weeks and months especially. Now, Denny Hamlin, I mentioned he had another quote, a spicy tweet. He went a step further beyond criticizing race control. He had this to say about the tires. If you're thinking that maybe NASCAR will look into someone else for tires, keep dreaming. Goodyear pays them a fat check so they are allowed to gouge the teams each week. Oh, okay, that one might, there might be a fine coming for that. That one might end up crossing the actions detrimental to stock car racing threshold. Ugh! Strong words there from an angry Denny Hamlin, criticizing the model to an extent, but also criticizing Goodyear. And as I said yesterday, Goodyear should be held to a higher standard than they've been. They're put in a tough situation, especially at a unique beast like Texas Motor Speedway, but they should be held to a higher standard. That's 2 weeks in a row. Bristol and Texas, completely different tracks. Both have seen tire failures occur more frequently than they should be. Now, Hamlin went the catchy, headline-grabbing Twitter route to voice his displeasure. I prefer what Rodney Childers tweeted earlier this morning, Kevin Harvick's crew chief. He went the more constructive, in-depth route, and I'm not going to read his whole little essay that he wrote here, but ultimately he chalked up many of the tire issues to the shock limiter rule. He talks a lot about downforce, and he also admits that the tires could be a little more durable, and also that Texas Motor Speedway is not a very hospitable racetrack. But at least Childers there is offering some very specific potential solutions. We'll see if any of those are actually realistic, if NASCAR listens to any of them going into next year perhaps, but I do prefer the constructive route rather than just the overly negative shock value t-shirt selling quote that we got from Denny Hamlin, but both can be effective in the right context, I suppose. Lots of drama on social media the last 24 hours or so, but that's gonna do it. Share your thoughts down in the comment section below. A lot of bold tweets, some big issues that NASCAR has not been able to consistently solve this year. Share your thoughts down in the comment section below. As always, if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We talk NASCAR news, we react to races, discuss rumors almost every single day here on Out of the Groove. You won't want to miss a thing. And as always, a big thank you to my Patreon supporters as well. We'll be back again tomorrow. It's going to be a busy week. Talladega coming up. Very excited about that. Hopefully the playoffs can kind of sort of get back on track. Business as usual, as expected. We'll have to wait and see. But thank you guys for watching. I will see you again very, very soon.